on July 7th, 2020. This meeting is being held virtually via WebEx due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a district, we dedicate all our efforts and resources to our goal of high achievement for each student. The board uses this goal to guide all deliberations, decisions, and actions. You will get to see all deliberations, decisions, and actions of the board in open session, with the exception of some items which may be discussed in a closed session as stipulated in the Texas Government Code, Section 551, commonly known as the Open Meetings Law. These items typically deal with personnel matters, consultation with our attorney, and real estate. For the record, the board members present are Tara Herbachek, Sally Derrick, Randy Shackman, John Matthews, Nancy Klein, and Guillermo Ramos. And I appreciate y'all taking time in July to join us tonight. We constitute a quorum and may conduct business on behalf of the district. Ladies and gentlemen, before moving on to the next agenda item, I would like to remind you that the board will accept comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak either as an individual or as a representative of a group may do so during agenda item number 3, audience for guests. When the board addresses agenda item number 3 further, well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you. To go ahead and want to participate, you press the raise your hand button, and Scott Monroe and I will call your names in order. To do this, first make sure the participant window is open by clicking on the participant icon at the bottom of your screen, then press the hand symbol in the lower right corner of the participant panel. If you're using a mobile device such as an iPhone, the participant button should be in the upper right portion of the screen. After opening it, the raise your hand button will be at the bottom of the screen. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, announcements.
Dr. Chapman,
I believe you may have some information for us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And again, I greatly appreciate you meeting with us on July as we need to approve a number of options as we move into the 2021 school year. First of all, big shout out to Ms. Klein's birthday is next Monday, July 13th. So happy birthday to you. But I want to hit on a couple brief topics as we move forward, and some of these are going to echo some videos that are going out, at least this week's video that I just did. First of all, our PPEs, so our personal protection equipment. The Texas Education Agency has provided us with a large amount of PPEs for our traditional on-site learning, for our students and our staff. So for the 2021 school year, we're going to receive disposable masks for students and for staff, reusable masks for students and staff, gloves for staff, face shields for staff only, but also for students with special activities. We're going to also have plenty of hand sanitizer throughout all of our facilities, and we also received a large number of temperature checks that will be administered for our guests that are coming into our building. So all of that came to us part of PEA. They purchased it. It was not purchased by school district funds, which is huge for the state of Texas, and they did it for every public school. But we should be receiving those items in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We also decided to move forward and purchase a new platform called K-12 Insight. So CFB is using what's called Let's Talk feature. It's an online customer service and communication tool to help CFBISD staff members to better serve the community. With this feature, what's nice about it is each individual can submit a question, a concern, a comment, or a suggestion 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from a computer or a tablet, smartphone, and they can receive a timely response from that question. The goal of the Let's Talk is to build a stronger community relationship with our individuals, and then also for us to give an opportunity to gauge, what are a number of those questions that are out there. It's also a unique feature that will help the district improve our customer service, which is one of the components that we're constantly trying to do within the district. So this K-12 Insight called Let's Talk, we're going to launch it again in the next coming week, maybe 2 weeks. Is going to be a great benefit to CFBISD. Also, our remote our enrollment for our remote learning. The district will launch a survey in the near future to determine parents' preference on traditional learning or remote learning for each child. The data collected will be used to plan to determine our class sizes, our master schedules, meal options, extracurricular activities, social and emotional needs of our students. So that's why we're going to be asking parents, which would you like to do? Again, traditional or remote. And a couple of weeks ago, TEA launched, here's 2 platforms that school districts are going to be able to do for the 2021 school year. We will receive funding for both, whether it's remote learning or traditional learning, which was huge as we roll out 2021 school year. Because we know that not all students want to come to school face-to-face for the 2021 school year. Now, a reentry plan, big news here. So the CFBISD has been working on a comprehensive district reentry plan, and we are continuously updating it. But big news, the Commissioner of Education, Mike Morath, announced today the comprehensive public health guidelines for students to return to school. He announced that at 3 p.m. today. And the guidelines are effective immediately because some students are going to start going back to school in July. We're not until August, but some decided to push their school year up. It contains 4 sets of practices that minimize the likelihood of viral spread, including some of the requirements for all schools. And these are the recommendations. First, provide notice. It is required to provide parental and public notice. Prevent. It is requiring practices to prevent the virus from entering the building. Screening protocols are required. Schools are required to comply with the governor's executive order requiring wearing a face mask, and that is today. That may lift in a few weeks, and if it does, then it's going to go back to students aren't going to be required, but it doesn't mean that a public school, such as ourselves, that we can or cannot require. Right now, we have to require. But again, if the executive order goes away, then we are not required to do such, but we may opt to make them wear them. Response is a third one, and it requires practices to respond to lab confirmed cases in a school. So they just released that, what if we have a case in a classroom, then what do we do? How are we are we shutting the whole school down? Are you shutting the whole district down? Well, there's now guidelines there. And mitigation is recommendations and requiring practices to reduce the spread within our school. So those 4 components were released at 3 o'clock today. I'll be honest with you, I have not had a chance to read it. It's brand new, hot off the press. We'll be reading it over the next day or 2. But the great thing is we've been working to develop our own plan. And in that plan, we use several components. So a big shout out to Mario Della Rosa and to Brian Mersch and their team for all the work. Sandra Leak for what they've done to develop our reentry plan. And the plan is part of the district's comprehensive reentry plan include CFBISD Emergency Management Plan, the Dallas County Reentry Plan, the CFBISD continuation of the operations plan, our education facilities, COVID-19 recovery reopening appendix, and then our infectious disease annex. All of those documents are included in what we have for our new plan. Once we now look at our reentry plan through TEA, we're going to put those 2 together to make sure we're covering all of our bases, and then we're going to release this to the public. Again, another reason that we weren't releasing such documents that have spent countless hours, well over a month on, is because we were still waiting for TEA to give us their final guidance before we release. Now, I will say this, I believe that ours is going to be more detailed, more stringent, and therefore we're going to be able to release it as soon as possible. But just so you know, that we're well ahead of the game from what TEA has already put together. A lot of people have been asking about UIL, the University Interscholastic League. What's going to happen next? Are we going to have sports? Are we going to have marching band? All of these things we will know tomorrow. So on July 8th, UIL Charles Brydup and Jamie Harrison are going to release their guidance on what UIL, competition sports, and fine arts will look like next year. So we still don't know the answer. But we do know that it will align with the public health guidance that was issued by the Commissioner of Education today. So we'll know more about that tomorrow. We have a number of committees rolling right now. So as I mentioned earlier, Texas Education Agency allowed us to have 2 basic platforms for student learning in 2021, traditional on-site learning committee and remote on-site committee. So we have 2 committees running right now consisting of principals, content directors, and other central office staff. These groups are led by our assistant superintendents and our chiefs of school leaders, and they meet regularly to start to develop plans for our staff and students reentry into the district. Michelle Bailey, Susan Machayo, and Maggie Della Rosa are leading the traditional committee, while Tracy Smith and Lance Hamlin are leading the remote committee. I will tell you, these individuals have done an exceptional job of working diligently to make sure that these committees are meeting the goals and the expectations of what tomorrow looks like. But I also want to say that remote learning for 2021 and at-home learning last spring, they do not look the same. They will not be the same. There will be much more structure. There's more guidelines set now by TEA. There's more expectations. And so just one tiny example of that is the 90% rule. So students are required during the 2021 school year to be in attendance, face-to-face or virtually, every day. But if they miss more than 10% during that semester, then they have to go before attendance committee. So all of that was waived during the spring of 2020. So they've moved back to keeping all of those rules and regulations in place. In the week since these groups have formed, visioning activities were utilized to help delineate basically the CFBISD plan. Once it is complete, the draft will then be formed in 2 parent face-to-face documents deliberating the safety and the educational measures of the district. And this will take to ensure that the students meet the expectations of attaining grade level standards, as well as the criteria for attendance and funding. These documents will also be shared with all principals and selected teaching staff prior to this being disseminated to our community, because we want to obtain their feedback and get their involvement before we send this out. Once we do that, then we'll edit the document again, and then we will send this out to all stakeholders. But we're doing that on both sides. Again, we want feedback from all stakeholders before we send out. But I'll tell you, we're well ahead of the game. Our teams are doing an incredible job. So just a big shout out to Dr. West and her leadership, Scott Monroe, all of those folks, and I now start naming them, I'm going to have to name them all, but our entire cabinet for all of the work they've done, because they have just, again, spent countless hours getting us to where we need to be. And these items that are here tonight are what's going to be the resources that we need to make sure that we have a solid educational experience during the 2021 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman, and thank you to all your staff for all the work that you've been putting in all summer and all spring to prepare us for our very important future. So, board members, anybody want to ask Dr. Chapman any questions? Okay, Ms. Derrick.
I have a question about the survey. When do we expect that to go out?
The survey should go out in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, and this is the parent survey asking which option they would choose for their child for the school year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We can now really move forward now that we have that public health guidance from TEA. That has just been it's almost like we've had the brakes on. We didn't want to do too much. And again, we didn't want to do more. There's been so many districts that have jumped out there and put so many plans together, and then they had to come back and retract all the information. Then they'd run with something else and they'd retract it and come back. And we've been putting all of our plans together behind the scenes, getting ready. And now we're ready to launch and move all this works forward. But our next step to see how many parents actually want to bring their children to school. And so we'll be pushing that out again within the next 2 weeks.
Mr.
But the timing on the details of what traditional and online is going to be released prior to that survey?
Yes, and that might be a Dr. West question. I don't want to put her on the spot.
That's all right. That's why I'm here. So actually, it's what it is we're gonna actually start enrolling folks, and we do have different committees that are working, and one of those has been the enrollment group, and they're putting together all the information about how parents now get online and choose about which learning mode that they would prefer. But those two committees that Dr. Chapman just mentioned, the traditional and the remote team, that we are in draft form. Those are already out to principals and to campus advisory, campus improvement council members right now. We're getting feedback, and we're going to do a town hall with teachers next week, and all of that will be ready to be rolled out also to parents. We're just making sure we're getting everything communicated really well internally and really getting feedback internally to do a good job. But parents, before they have to make a decision, they're going to have lots of information. It's also important to know that even when parents make a decision, if they make a decision before school starts and they say that they want remote, and then it gets closer to school and they decide they want to switch to traditional, we'll be able to do that. We want to make sure that we're flexible before school starts, because we know parents are trying to figure things out.
Yeah, you read my mind. Excellent. But so following on that, if a parent makes a decision about the traditional and the online, and 6 weeks in, I'm like, this is not working for my kid or kids, what's the change? Is there a change process? I remember I thought I saw something in the guidance that there was a
grading period. So ours will be 9 weeks grading period.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's there. Yeah. So and that's in the commissioner's guidance. So if you're a 6 week grading period, then you can change after 6 weeks. We're 9 weeks, so we'll change after 9 weeks.
Okay. So go back and forth. Okay. If you need to, and understanding that all of these things and our plans and learnings could change based on how our health reports are going. I mean, I think that's important to note as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, and on that K-12, let's talk. Is that community, all
Yes.
CFB community stakeholders, not just parents and CFB families? That's
well, we're not going to dictate that, but yeah, it'll be open.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be open for the entire community.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is going to be a huge tool. We may be crying in about a month, but it's a good opportunity. We want to hear what people are saying and how we can get better.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Shackman?
Dr. Chapman, Dr. West, have we had any indicative information from any sources that might give us a projection to say 50-50 split in remote versus traditional, or 34? Is there anything out there that gives us any clues?
In CFB right now, we do not. Here's what's interesting. We had I've been really watching the polls and talking to Denton County superintendents and Dallas County supes, and a month ago they were jumping out to see how many we would have, and the average was about 20 to 24% said that they would keep their children at home, which means 80+% were going to bring them back. Very interesting, and obvious for likely reasons. Several large districts, I met with several today and asked, have y'all polled again? And they did. And during this high spike, guess what? The numbers are 48 to 52%. So that number has changed dramatically, but we're going to go back down again. And we firmly believe that, that number is going to change again. But for the sake of CFBISD, we do not have those numbers as of yet.
Thank you for your questions, and thank you, Dr. Chapman, for your information. With that, we'll move on to item number 3, audience for guests. The board will accept comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak either as an individual or as a representative of a group may do so during this time. Before we begin, I will remind our audience members of the board's procedures for handling public comments. Each speaker will be allowed to address the board by speaking once for a maximum of 3 minutes. The public comments portion of the meeting will be no more than 30 minutes total as dictated by board policy BED local. If during that time the board is not able to hear from everyone who wanted an opportunity to speak, you'll be invited to speak at the next regularly scheduled meeting. So Mr. Monroe, are any hands up?
Watching, I do not see any hands up yet. Still no hands.
So I'm going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, but if you see any, please let us know. Agenda item number 4 is items for discussion and or action, and that's the purpose of why we're here tonight. 4A is consider participation in the Region 16 ESC Text Buy Statewide Purchasing Cooperative. Mr. Curbo, thank you for joining us tonight. I understand you'll be speaking to this.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Chapman, Ms. Klein, and members of the board. It's my pleasure to present this item to you for your consideration this evening. As you know, Texas law allows for government entities such as state agencies, municipalities, local governments, and school districts to enter into cooperative agreements to consolidated administrative processes to be performed by a single entity on behalf of those electing to participate. The procurement of goods and services is one of those processes allowable under this statute. The benefit of an arrangement like this is to reduce administrative costs for each participating member. The code also allows or requires a government body from each entity to authorize an execute an interlocal agreement and participation resolution. Region 16 Education Service Center administers a statewide purchasing cooperative which provides a valuable service to its members for needed purchases from key vendors available under contracts procured on behalf of its members. And this agreement is a perpetual agreement that would begin immediately after the execution of the agreement for participation in the purchasing cooperative known as the Text Buy Statewide Purchasing Cooperative administered by Region 16. It also allows the district to purchase off contracts administered through this cooperative. And there is no cost to CFB to join or participate in this purchasing cooperative. So thank you for your attention to this item. This is my presentation. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Chapman for his recommendation to the board.
Yeah, I recommend that you approve such resolution.
So board members, I'm looking for a motion.
Ms. Klein, I move that we accept the board agreement as presented, the participation in the Region 16 Text Buy Statewide Purchasing Cooperative.
Mr. Boschik, did you put your hand up?
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 in favor. That will leave none that are opposed. Thank you, Mr. Curbo. Item 4B, consider approval of the purchase of Germinator mobile sanitizing and disinfecting services. Mr. Mulroney?
Thank you, everyone. Dr. Chapman, members of the board. As you know, we're always looking for ways to improve our cleaning operations, and obviously with the COVID pandemic, that's more important than ever. We had reached out to Germinator and got a wonderful presentation and got a chance to explore their processes and chemicals. And this evening, we'd like to share that information with you. On the call this evening, we have Jeff Barnett and David Lind, both from Germinator, who would like to explain a bit about their product and their process and how that's going to help CFB.
Thank you, Malcolm. This is David Lynn. I just wanted to make a personal statement. I actually grew up in Farmers Branch, Carrollton School District back in the 60s and 70s. Fond memories, grew up on Birch Line. Went to Valwood Elementary, 1st through 3rd grade. And then when Farmers Branch Elementary opened in 1968, I attended that new school. Also attended Vivian Field and DeWitt Perry. So it's fond memories of my early years, and just wanted to mention that on a personal note. Thank you for allowing me to do that. Jeff is going to actually make the presentation.
All right. Thank you, David. Well, thank you so much, CFBISD, for allowing us to be with you this evening. I want to jump right in and share with you about Germinator. Number one, I like to let people know that we are not a COVID-19 startup. Germinator's been in business since 2015. I'm actually the vice president of sales for Germinator, and I've actually been in the disinfection, the high-level disinfection industry for about 6 years. I have certifications in this industry from the American Hospital Association that we also teach inside of our company, and our technicians are trained with American Hospital Association certifications, and so we're very proud of that. So basically, if I break down our service in a short fashion, because I can explain it in 10 minutes or I can explain it in an hour, we're going to go for 10 minutes. We do two things as a company, and these are pillars of our company. And number one, the first pillar is we want to reduce the transmission of illness within an environment. So our goal, our number one goal, is to reduce the transmission of illness within your facilities. And number two, we want to reduce fear. And we do that through a partnership with you. And if we do those two things, then we feel like we're doing our job in a partnership with you. If we do one of those things and not both, we don't feel like we're doing our job correctly. And so the goal the entire time is both of those: reduce the transmission of illness in the environment and reduce fear. So I want to talk real quickly on how we do both of those. Under the first pillar of reducing the transmission of illness within the environment, we have two ways we do that. Number one, high-level disinfection with electrostatic sprayers. Number one, before I jump into our actual disinfectant that we use, I want to talk real quick about about our electrostatic sprayers. So we chose, as part of our system and our service, to use electrostatic sprayers. The number one reason for that is electrostatic sprayers, they eliminate human error, meaning we don't miss anything. And here's why. Electrostatic sprayers, that technology actually puts a positive charge on our disinfectant as it's coming out the sprayer gun. As it's coming out, it puts a positive charge on it, and it creates what we call a wraparound effect. And so there's no surfaces on desks, there's no keyboards, nothing escapes our disinfectant. It covers everything. And so that's why we chose to use that application method, because application method is equally important as the disinfectant itself. Our disinfectant is the strongest and safest disinfectant on the market. We call it Genesis. Genesis means new beginning. Our goal is to take that environment back to a new beginning. The actual product that's called Genesis, it's called hypochlorous acid, okay? The unique thing about hypochlorous acid is it's actually found inside the human body. It's how our body fights off bacteria and virus internally. And so we have hypochlorous acid that we use in the environment, 100% safe. it's so safe, as a matter of fact, that technicians, when they get through, if we partner with you, after they come out of a facility after disinfecting it, they actually disinfect themselves with it. They spray each other down. They spray their face, their eyes, their nose, their mouth. And so it's 100% safe because it is native to.
It's like we lost.
Did you say you lost me? Are you guys okay?
You're back. You're back.
Oh, good, good. Okay. It's 1,000 times stronger than Lysol and 100 times stronger than bleach, but yet it's safe. And so that's why we've chosen that, our Genesis product. Again, the safest and strongest. We apply that with electrostatic sprayers in the entire environment. We're taking the environment back to its new beginning. Now, we have a term in our industry called you're disinfected until you're reinfected. That can be minutes, right? So we have a second step to support that first pillar of reduce the transmission of illness in the environment, and that is our shield. Shield is an antimicrobial barrier that we apply after Genesis is dry. As soon as that's dry, a second team of technicians comes through, again with electrostatic sprayers, and they apply the antimicrobial barrier. Once that antimicrobial barrier dries, it's called shield. Once it dries, if you could see it under a microscope, it's a microscopic product, obviously, but if you could see it under a microscope, it would look like a very aggressive, jagged bed of nails or swords, and it has a positive charge to it. So it actually attracts microorganisms. It attracts germs. And so as soon as that germ, as soon as that COVID-19, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's bacteria, virus, fungus, or mold, it kills it all. It attracts it to it. But by the way, bacteria and virus are gram negative, so they have a negative charge. So that positive and negative are attracted to each other. And as soon as it hits, it pierces the outer cell wall and shocks it and destroys it. So it's a beautiful process. And so it makes all the surfaces in your facilities uninhabitable for bacteria and virus, uninhabitable. So therefore, we disinfect and then we shield it. And now that term disinfected until reinfected is no longer, because you are disinfected and then you have a residual disinfection because of the shield. So that's step 2. And that is how we reduce the transmission of illness in the environment. Is reduce fear. How do we do that? Number 1, we have a process called ATP monitoring. I call this evidence-based science. We're fighting an invisible enemy with an invisible weapon. We have an obligation to show you that it's working. So we come into the environment pre-service, and we call it our pre-swab, and we swab many areas of every single building. So every facility you have, we would do a pre-swab. It looks like probably 7 or 8 inch Q-tip, right? And in a 4-inch square, we swab it and we pop that swab into an ATP meter, and it kicks out a number. And that number represents the amount of ATP on the surface of that environment. Now, what is ATP? ATP is left behind by its present to the level of how much bacteria or virus is on that surface. So it's a byproduct. ATP it's called adenosine triphosphate. It's a byproduct of bacteria and virus. So whatever that number is tells us how much bacteria or virus is on that surface. It doesn't tell us what's on the surface. It just tells us how much of it is there. The higher numbers mean the higher numbers of toxic pathogens. The lower numbers means the lower number of toxic pathogens. Obviously, COVID-19 is front center stage, so that's our number 1 concern, to make sure that those numbers are low. And so we swab it, we get that number, we do the Germinator service with Genesis and Shield, and then we do a post swab in all those same places. We collect that data and we send that data to you so that you can see it and see that those numbers change. One of our recent numbers that I like to share is the city of Odessa out in West Texas. We went in and did pre and post swabbing. The pre swabs were registering at about 600. The post swabs were registering at about 40. Now, those numbers probably don't mean anything to you, but I'll draw you a line in the sand. Any number over 300 means that there is enough toxic pathogens on that surface to transfer an illness. It doesn't guarantee it's going to transfer an illness. It's just there's enough there that it could. When we take it below 300, there is not enough to transfer an illness in that environment. So we've reduced that and we've accomplished our job. We feel like that evidence will help in the reduction of fear of this illness. The second thing that we do to reduce fear is marketing. And I really feel like this is critical to our entire process. And here's why. If you invest this money in to get this process done in your facilities, we need to shout it from the mountaintops, and we help you do that. We help you create content, and we already have it. We have an internal marketing team. We create content for you to push out to your internal stakeholders, which are your staff, your teachers, your coaches, everyone that's internal. We want them to know, because once they know that that environment is safe and that you've done everything you know to do for that environment, it gives them the confidence to be their best. And then we create content to be pushed out to your external stakeholders, your students and your parents. And parents then feel comfortable to send their kids into an environment that you've done everything you can. And so that is one piece of the marketing. The second piece of the marketing is we put decals. Matter of fact, I've got one here. We put decals on your entrances of your facilities. And so I want to show you quickly a decal that we have. I call it our fear not message. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's our fear not message. It lets you know, fear not, protected by Germinator, mobile sanitizing. And so it's a visual message as anyone is entering those facilities that, okay, wow, they've done something to this building. Even if they don't know exactly what Germinator is or who Germinator is, they see the message and it resonates that it's a safe place for them to be and that you've done something to the building, you've sanitized the building. So that's our fear not message. So we do all of that. We do those four things. Then we feel like we've done our job to accomplish the two pillars of our company: reduce the transmission of illness in the environment and reduce fear. And so that is what we do. That's a short description of what we do, but if there's any questions, I would love to answer those.
Jeff, could you talk them through a couple things? One, the 90-day.
Yes.
2, EPA, FDA approved, and 3, it doesn't stop the daily maintenance and cleaning.
Right. Great. So the shield is a 90-day, we have a 90-day protection plan. So the EPA says that we need to reapply shield every 90 days. It protects that environment for the 90 days, and then we need to reapply. In school districts, in corporate America, we reapply every quarter, which is 4 times a year. In school districts, we do 3 times a year because the timing of it goes into the summer and you don't need those summer months. And so we apply 3 times a year, which is every 90 days. So that's that safety message and that protection message that we have is your environment is protected for the 90 days with that shield. It's a residual kill for 90 days where your disinfectants kill immediately. The shield continues killing. It's a residual kill for up to 90 days. So that's that one. On EPA and FDA, both of our products are EPA registered and both of our products are FDA. They're food safe. We're in restaurants all the time, restaurant chains, large sit-down restaurants, small fast food. We're in their kitchens applying both of our products, very, very safe on both. And so I hope that answers your question on that. And then your custodial services, we don't want to, what we do is augment what they currently do. We don't want to replace them. As a matter of fact, we want them to know we're part of their team. We want to help make their job easier. And that's another neat feature of our Shield, is it actually makes surfaces, one of the benefits of Shield is it makes the surface easier to clean when it has that shield on it. So custodial services love us. Like when we're in hospitals and EVS services, they love it because they'll even give feedback that they can clean the surfaces better and quicker. So, but yes, we augment what you're currently doing with your custodial services.
Thank you. So board members, we're looking for a motion and then we'll have some discussion. Ms. Herbacek?
I move that we approve the purchase of Germinator mobile sanitation services. This says as presented, but there's two options in the agenda packet. So so I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve option 1 for now.
Mr. Mulroney, is that the option we're looking at?
Both options were presented to the board, and obviously we have that option. The option 2, obviously with 3 applications and continued testing, has a benefit at a cost, and so that's really what we have to weigh on.
Yeah, and you're basically getting one application for, well, I should say for free, but you're not being charged for that one. So if that's the case, then I guess we come back in 3 months and ask again if we only go with option 1. I don't know why the 2 options are there.
So Dr. Chapman, you would recommend option 2?
I recommend option 2. That'll get us through at least the 2021 school year. If not, we'll be coming back to the board in probably September, October, so we can do it again in November.
Well, and that's, I'll amend the motion. I mean, I have questions, from that, which part of the discussion that would have led to the motion, but I'll amend my motion for us to approve the purchase option 2 of Germinator.
So we have a motion by Mr. Bocek. Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Derrick. So any discussion? And Mr. Mulroney. So whoever put their hands up first, I saw Mr. Shackman. You want to go first?
I'll start. I'm just simply going to ask, are there any budgetary concerns? Is this a $1.4 million add on top of, or is it factored into the budget? What are we looking at there? I think it's an important service, but we just need to know how we're paying for it.
So this is Steve. So we'd have to, we do have room in our budget for one-time expenses, even of this size. If we need to do something like that this coming year, if it was something that was going to be recurring over the next 10 years, I mean, hopefully it won't be, but certainly the possibility. But we could look at it a little bit, harder then. But we do have the capacity in our budget to be able to take on a cost of this nature. I'm hopeful that, especially with the marketing, that I was hearing about earlier, that will impact the willingness of the students to choose us versus some of the other choices that they have, which would also impact the equation, obviously.
Mr. Rollins?
I had a couple questions because I was looking at, and it's kind of expands on Randy's question. I noticed that some of it said that the funding is coming from title and grant funds. Do you know what percentage is coming from that? And then I do have a second question after that.
I do not know the answer to that. We'll have to look at that. I'm not sure what would be when you, because some of it would be in child nutrition, make sure the cafeteria tables are clean and the kitchens are clean and things like that. Some of that could be in that federal fund, okay? You know, because you have to treat the student nutrition fund as a federal fund. But as far as title, I'm not quite sure that it would be used for that.
Okay.
But I don't see those percentages being significant.
Okay. All right. And then the second question I have is directed at Mr. Burnett. Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple questions. Your Germinator, is it used in any other districts prior to COVID? And also, are they used, I'm not familiar with it and I apologize for, is it used at all maybe like in some hospitals or something along those lines, medical care facilities?
Yes, sir. So both questions are yes. We are currently in some school districts that have been with us for, so just a little background, I actually had another company that was acquired by Germinator because I've been in this industry for about 6 years, and we've got school districts not only in Texas but in New Mexico that have been with us pre-COVID-19, and then also obviously quite a few coming on board with us as we speak because of COVID-19. So some saw value in it even before COVID-19. And then with hospitals, yes, sir, hospitals in West Texas and New Mexico that have been with us. Not any, the largest hospital right now, we're actually fixing to move forward with partnering with UMC in Lubbock, University Medical Center in Lubbock. But normally more, I would call them tier 2, tier 3 size hospitals, which is your markets of like 100,000 pops or even lower, that our services seem to fit their models better than the large ones because their facilities are so large. But now they are beginning to look at our services now also just because for that added layer of safety, and even liability is starting to come into the picture, it seems like, where employers are just wanting to do everything they possibly can to provide a safe environment for their employees. So yes, sir, we are in both of those environments.
Okay.
Mr. Vacek?
So on the agenda packet, option 2 says it includes regular testing. How is that regular testing different from the testing that you mentioned that's part of the service that we would get with a single application?
Yes, ma'am. I would have to look and see specifically what you're referencing, but I'll just let you know what we do. So part of our 90-day protection plan is this. There's some of us probably on this call, I know myself, that remember days before the number 911 existed. And if something happened, you had to literally figure out what number to call for help. Well, we want to be that number for help. And so what that means is when you have, we're reducing the transfer of illness in the environment. You still may have some kids get together, whether it be at home, weekend, or even at school, that could transmit to each other, human to human. When that happens, we're the number to call. And what we do is we respond in a way where we come in and test the environment again in those areas where, so like let's just say, hypothetically, you had some athletes at a high school come back positive, 2 or 3 of them, or even a staff member. You would call us because we would be your partner in this. You would call us, we would be that phone call, and we would come in and test the environment, same ATP monitoring, and make sure that the environment's still where it's supposed to be. Just for your peace of mind and our peace of mind, your parents and students' peace of mind, to make sure that we're going in and checking that environment. If it happened to be back above the 300 in that area where you may have had a couple of kids get ill, and it could be even with a stomach bug, right? I mean, COVID-19 is all the attention, but there's many other things. You even have athletes that can get staph infections. You call us, we come in and we make sure that the environment is where it needs to be. So that's that continuous testing that we offer as part of the program.
Okay. So, and Malcolm, Dr. Chapman, I don't know, I think, and I had sent a note about this, before a meeting, but I think my concern, no, I like the service, and I think the protection that is said by the company. I think my concern is will people get complacent with all of our other measures specific to COVID-19 to prevent virus spread? Now, I like the idea of the common cold and stomach bugs and staph. I mean, all of that is important, but like you said, the focus right now is on COVID-19. So I guess how would we communicate the importance of, yes, we've got this great backup plan, but you've still got to do all this other stuff, this other stuff.
Well, I can certainly talk from the custodial services point of view. If you remember back in the days of January, before the shutdown,
different world, Malcolm, different world.
we were already requesting additional custodial equipment, the electrostatic sprayers, right, and so forth. And our plan will continue to do this. This is a bridge to bring our team up to speed and really challenge us. These folks have the right chemicals, the right training to set the mark for us, but we're going to match them step for step over the next year. So we're going to utilize this as a training opportunity for our guys to not slack off, but rather keep up with the pace of what these guys are setting. So from custodial and maintenance side, we know that this is not a chance to back away, but rather keep up with the pace of these folks.
And I don't question their efforts at all. I think mine's more, whatever our requirements are going to be in the classroom once those guidelines are set. People stay, being apart, wearing masks, washing their hands, hand sanitizer. I think I'm more talking about the behaviors that would contribute, not necessarily those steps. That's my concern, that people will get complacent and not follow those guidelines because we've got this spray.
You bring up an interesting concept that I've actually seen in history of this. What we found is we found this in healthcare environments, and we found this in school district environments and even corporate environments. When the awareness climbs, which all of our awareness is at the highest level it's ever been in all of our lives, because of what's going on. But if we take your students and staff, for instance, as the awareness comes up, the practices of hygiene have come up with it. So we haven't seen the opposite of where they come down. We've actually seen them come up. We even do, again, our internal marketing department, we create content around this entire message because, again, the goal is to reduce the transmission in the environment and then reduce fear. And so we want to partner with you in creating content where we even help you with the hand washing campaigns. I mean, because we all know that's the number one way to prevent the transmission of illness. It's number one. And so we partner with you in those things and create that content. But we found that as the awareness increases, hygiene practices increase with it. So we feel like you'll experience that too, and not the opposite. It's a common concern, but we've actually seen it as awareness goes up, practices goes up.
Okay. So I guess I'll just, Dr. Chapman and Malcolm, and then I guess Dawn would be involved in communications as well. I think my ask is just that we utilize their expertise in those communications just to make sure that those are still, whatever we decide are traditional in the buildings, whatever our guidelines are, that we make folks aware of this great product, but the other stuff can't stop.
Yeah, so that will be part of our reentry plan, and we'll continuously hone in on that plan, on what the expectations are. And just like Malcolm was saying, just because we have this application doesn't mean we stop cleaning water fountains and doorknobs. We're going to continue to do all of this. This is just now one step further to protect our staff and students.
Okay, no, and I think it's a great, I do think it's a great step. I think that was just really my major concern.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
That's all, Ms. Klein.
Mr. Burnett, I'm curious. So you're going to enter, say, a high school. What happens to the books on the wall and the teacher's personal things in the classroom? And does the building need to be empty for this application, and how does that work?
Yeah, so we have content, we have literature that we actually send out to the school before. So we have a complete execution plan for every client that we have. We come in, evaluate the every property, even to the point where before our technicians show up, they actually even know what facilities are going to happen from 1 to 90, you know, or however many facilities you have. They know exactly the order they're going to go in. But even before that, we send you documents that you send out to everyone so that you're prepared for us to come in. The biggest thing is paperwork. We don't want paperwork just laying out, right? We don't want papers just laying out. So if it can be, put in drawers, anything like that. And basically what would happen to a paper is it'll just, like any paper that's sitting out, it would just like curl the edge of a paper. And so that's basically the worst thing that would happen to a piece of paper. Anything on the walls isn't going to be affected. I guess unless you have like a specific one sheet of paper tacked to a wall, but if it's protected in plastic, and it's not going to be harmed at all. But we actually send you a list of preparation best practices for when we come in.
So like books on a bookshelf?
Yeah, we go into environments. So we're in, for instance, take like some mega churches that we actually treat. Their libraries where they have hundreds of books or potentially thousands. Those are not, so our technicians are highly trained. They know they're focused on critical touch points, anything that a human's going to touch. So they're not going to be getting a book itself, the same amount. They're going to be treating the bookshelves, but our guys have been doing this for a while. We've been doing this, so there's no chance of those books getting damaged. They're literally going through training all the time, and our new technicians go through intense training before they can actually put their hand on a sprayer. So they just know how to work in an environment like you have to where nothing gets damaged. And of course, if something did, then we're liable, and obviously we have to take care of that and do the right thing.
Ms. Klein, I have one more question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Malcolm, what's the timing on this once we approve? I mean, if it's good for 90 days, are we looking at what the recommendation is? You're kind of that for the school year, but since we don't have an end in sight, unfortunately for this chaos, what about those schools that have after the bell and summer programs, summer school, even though we don't know what that plan looks like for next summer, what's the timing for those?
Right, so we would hold until we have a good start date, which we're getting closer to, but obviously move in right before the folks get back, so it's safe for everybody coming back, and we get the maximum 90 days into the school year. That'll give us a little bit of extra, assuming we don't go too far into July, or who knows what happens next year. But with those specialized campuses where we do have some of those programs, we'll be coming back for a summer application at those locations. And that's where utilizing our internal folks who are going to be training and learning how to do shield products like this is going to be vital.
Okay, so that would be separate from this option 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to be clear, there's nowhere where this is grant or title funded. So this is coming out of our local funds. This is, again, not nowhere grant title funding. So I just want to be clear before we moved on.
Ms. Klein, I have a question.
Mr. Ramos?
The reason I asked that is because I noticed that it said that that's where it might be coming from. But thank you for that clarification, Dr. Chapman.
Ms. Derrick?
My question is about the coverage and where we are including in that the square footage that's provided in our notes. Does that include for high schools the outdoor training facilities, all of the gyms? I know there's been a lot of increase in spread among athletes. So have we thought about that, and is it including all of those spaces?
Yeah, the answer is yes, it is all included. So we're including all of your facilities, and that includes any, I mean, even including playgrounds, you know, things that are getting hit by the sun for enough hours during the day. The surfaces that face the sun, the UV kills. But what about the areas that are in the shade or in a shadow? So we're still going to be treating those. And then all of your athletic facilities are included in that at your high schools and middle schools.
Well, I know I've learned a lot more than I knew before this, and I appreciate Mr. Lynn's history in our school district, and Mr. Burnett, your presentation of your experience with working with this product and its application. We have a motion by Tara Herbachek. We have a second by Sally Derrick. Unless there's any more discussion, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor? So that looks like 5 on the screen and me, so 6 in favor, and that would leave 0 to be opposed. And thank y'all for helping us understand what this product is that we're talking about introducing into our schools. And we look forward to providing the safest environment we can for our staff and our students. So that takes us to item 4C, consider approval of purchase of laptop computers for teachers. Mr. Monroe.
Thank you. Back online here. Dr. Chapman, President Klein, members of the board. I'm excited to talk about several of the technology items here, starting with the teacher laptops that we're requesting the board approve for purchase. Currently, teachers have a combination of Chromebooks that were in our very original Chromebook purchase in June of 2016. So they're 1 month over 4 years old now, which is about 13 months beyond the expected life of a Chromebook. In addition to desktop computers that are, many of which are not even capable of running a supported Windows operating system. They're mostly 7 to 8 years old. And so this is an item that's been identified back earlier in the fall as something we needed to work on a better solution for teachers, and certainly was brought to the forefront with the remote virtual learning environments and virtual meeting environments, since those Chromebooks that teachers have been taking home lack, like the current ones we're purchasing for students, lack a camera, lack a microphone and things to participate in meetings like this. Were a considerable barrier as principals worked with teachers and teachers worked with students in the spring. And so to avoid having some of those same challenges as we start school this coming year, we are kind of accelerating that replacement of those devices with this item, and this will provide teachers with a very nice, very capable single device, a laptop. Actually, it's identical to the ones we're giving administrators and central office staff, and as well as the board members that have a district laptop. And so it's a very capable device. We're also getting them a docking station, monitor, keyboard, and mouse. Once they walk into the classroom from home or from another meeting in the campus, they can simply put it down, plug it in. They're ready to present on their display, use their document camera, print all the other things they may need to do. And so this item is for, and I think it's going to be a great improvement to the technology we're providing teachers.
You know, we may also want to just mention the fact that that laptop is now a combination of their, you mentioned that, a docking station,
right,
but we're not having now two different devices for our teachers.
Right. So we'll be getting rid of the Chromebooks. Like I said, we won't be able to recycle those back into the student use because they are over 4 years old already, but we'll be able to pull those Chromebooks out of service, and as well as recycle and pull those 7, 8, 9-year-old desktop Windows computers out of service, and provide them with a much more capable any place, anytime device.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Monroe. Board members, do we want to take any action? Mr. Matthews. Would you unmute, please?
Does it not work?
I'm sorry, I just unmuted him.
Okay, thank you. Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we approve the purchase of teacher laptops and associated services as presented, and authorize the superintendent or his designee to negotiate and execute contracts for such purchases in the best interest of the district.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews. Do we have a second? Mr. Scheckman. So any questions for Mr. Monroe?
I believe Mr. Ramos has a question.
Are we at the discussion portion of it, or?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. I think it's great. I think it's very important that we do this, but I just want to let the board know that I'm abstaining on this decision. I think it's important that we move forward with it, though.
Okay. Well, any other discussion? I don't see any hands up. So all those in favor? So I see 4 hands up plus me, so that's 5 in favor, and then any opposed? I see no opposition, so Mr. Ramos is abstaining on this item. Our next item is 4D, consider approval of the purchase of replacement interactive displays. Mr. Monroe?
Yes, Dr. Chapman, members of the board. Much like the last item, this is an item we're accelerating from scheduled for next year. And one of the things we're able to do, we've been in the process of buying some of the interactive displays to replace the very aging and largely beginning to be non-functional projectors that are 8 to 10 years old in the classrooms. This item will allow us to go ahead and replace all of the elementary and secondary classrooms with a new standard, which is Promethean active panels. They're similar to the new line panels that we've gotten a small number of, but actually use the Promethean Active Engage software. They're coming in because of our volume purchase at a lower price point for a more functional device. So we're excited about that. We've tested with our elementary teachers and instructional staff with great feedback on those. And so that would provide those for all the elementary teachers. But the secondary, we're moving to a non-touch display. What we found there is that the teachers generally aren't bringing small groups up to interact and touch the display like they are at elementary. So there's not a reason to spend an extra several $1,000s a display for that touch interactivity. But rather with the combination of the laptops that we're getting them and the casting ability that these displays, the ViewSonic displays have for secondary, the teacher or students will be able to send from her laptop or his laptop or student Chromebooks to the display and be able to share what they're working on with the class that way. This, we feel like, gives us fits into the instructional model better, as well as brings our price point down several $1,000s a piece on those displays, allowing us to combine with the volume purchase that we're doing, bring what would have been probably a $13 to $14 million project to get all of our classroom fixed down to $7 million, and it gets us where we need to be for the next 5 to 7 years. So we're excited about that.
Thank you. So 5 to 7 years is how long this is expected to last?
Generally speaking, the displays should last between 6 and 7 years. Of course, the touch displays have a little bit of a higher, incident rate for does the surface start to wear, things like that. But we expect at least a minimum of 5 years of service out of all this.
So board members, do we want to have a motion?
Go ahead, Sally. Go ahead, Sally.
Okay, I move that we approve the purchase of the replacement interactive displays as presented.
So we have a motion by Ms. Derrick, a second by possibly Mr. Shackman.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. And now we're at the discussion part. If anybody has any questions about the displays, Mr. Ramos?
Again, please, I'm going to abstain from voting on it. Please don't read anything into my abstention. I think it's important that we move forward with this item as well. So,
any other discussion? Mr. Bacha?
So I want to ask two things on the budget funding. It says operating budget, grant, and title funds. Is this all three since there was a difference on the other one, or is this just operating?
If we have a teacher that's funded by title, then we can put their computer to title. And so again, I don't see this, being material, but there would be the opportunity to use some of the funds that way if we need to. Whenever we showed the board the numbers for our projection for 1920, it included a transfer out into a technology internal service fund of over $10 million that will be used to fund this overall. And so the vast majority of this is going to come through that technology internal service fund, which is basically a general fund. But if employees are getting devices, we can use those funds that are applicable to their payroll for those purposes.
So, but these are the classroom displays. Does that mean if a teacher's classroom is title?
Well, in that case, I misspoke. In that case, then if there's something in the cafeteria or something like that, but yeah, those would pretty much all be general fund.
Okay, and then on the quantity, I understand volume discount, the 1,000 elementary and 1,000 secondary. I mean, how does that compare with the classrooms that we have?
In terms of the cost that we're incurring on classrooms we have?
Well, I guess this says 1,000 displays for elementary and 1,000 displays for secondary, which I assume is all the middle and high schools.
Right.
I assume there's some some surplus for maintenance or replacement in that quantity. But I mean, how many elementary classrooms are we using? And we have, and same on secondary.
Right. So that's a maximum authorization. We're still going through and assessing exactly. So the quantity will be less than 2,000 overall. In terms of the quantity, that's the maximum amount we would purchase. But we do have some new line displays out there that have been purchased and things. And so we're going to work to make sure that we have all the right things in the right places and then purchase just what's needed. In terms of the volume discounts we're getting, and it's not dependent on just that. I mean, we can vary the quantity, so long as it is in that ballpark and maintain pricing. But when looking at what we would get on a one item price multiplied times 1,000 for each product would have been around $11.4 million based on their standard educational discount. So purchasing in this type quantity, we're realizing about 30+% savings.
Okay, so this is almost like the quantity is a not to exceed quantity.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and to confirm, I'm correct. This agenda packet item would say the general operating budget, or is it that technology fund is set aside in the budget? That's all. There's no grant, no title.
That's correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Monroe, COVID has created all kinds of nightmares in supply chain and logistics and all that. Any issues in getting the quantities of things we're buying and having them in place by this school year?
Yes, sir, there is. You're correct. There's substantial supply chain disruptions. No one can really give that answer until product is ordered and it gets in the queue, and then we start to see how things are shipping. For example, we did purchase around 300 laptops and another 300 or so desktop computers beginning of first week of May. We did receive those several weeks ago. However, we purchased 5,000 Chromebooks at the same time that still are not here and aren't projecting to be here now until mid-August. And so there definitely is, I would say things are at least twice as long as we typically would expect to get for any type, or it doesn't matter, even small quantities. We've had back orders on some of the things as small as 2 servers, et cetera, get pushed back. So it's, we just stay on the vendors the best we can and get it here as quickly as we can. But it is a challenge for sure, as factories have had interruptions as well as distribution and shipping, customs, a lot of things.
So if we approve this tonight, it sounds like you better order it at 8:30. Yeah.
There's the reason we rushed to get this meeting out there. Right? Exactly. We get it out there as soon as we can.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So board members, we have a motion by Ms. Derrick and a second by Randy Shackman. Are we ready to vote? So all those in favor, oh, Mr. Matthews, are you voting? Okay, yeah. So all those in favor? And all those opposed? So it was 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and Mr. Ramos is abstaining. Consider approval of the purchase of additional mobile hotspots. Mr. Monroe.
Thank you. President Klein, Dr. Chapman. So this item is another not to exceed purchase approval. We currently have purchased 500 mobile hotspots from T-Mobile, which cost us a reoccurring all-in charge of $20 a month. We have those available, many of which were checked out to students in the spring. We really needed to purchase those back in May we had students who needed to get into credit recovery courseware and things to graduate. We got a lot of those out. But as we start school, we know there are going to be quite a few students who may choose remote learning and don't have access at home to the internet. So in order to use their district provided Chromebook, they may need a mobile hotspot to connect to a cellular network, and so that they can join their class or their teacher either in a live meeting format like this, or access their assignments and courseware and Canvas and other things. And so this is approval to purchase up to an additional 1,500 of those mobile hotspots as we begin to get the information in from the survey and our registration process enrollment process rather, that we mentioned, Dr. West mentioned earlier. As we get those numbers in to see how many students are going to be learning remote, we begin to line that up with the surveys and things we did in the spring to assess and track each student, whether they have home internet or not, and then order based on that. So this is an approval for a not to exceed amount up to an additional 1,500 access points. Any questions?
Ms. Klein, are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
All right, I move that the board approves the purchase of additional mobile hotspots as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Bocek. Mr. Ramos, is that a second?
Yes,
we have
it's a second.
by Mr. Ramos. Any questions for Mr. Monroe? Ms. Terry.
So just to confirm, you're saying that we will only purchase as many as is determined as needed based on the results of the survey. So we're not going to be paying this $30 per month for, I'm sorry, $20 per month for hundreds of hotspots that we didn't necessarily need.
That is correct.
Okay, and then my second question is, what is the likelihood of us getting the needed hotspots in time for school to start in August? Do you have any idea?
That is a great question. I don't, based on our last purchase, which was at we were a little behind some other districts that were scrambling for them in May, and we were still able to get those in about 3 weeks. And so I'm hoping that the supply chain is similar. I know they're really ramping up to provide them. That you kind of hit the pertinent question on the head there. That is the rub with waiting until we have better numbers and making sure that we don't waste money with an access point sitting on the shelf waiting for a student, while at the same time, by the time we really have those numbers firmed up, it may be challenging to get them in before school starts. And so that is a bit of a catch-22 there.
Mr. Jackson,
yes, I understand. Thank you.
Dr. Chapman, related to this, is there anything on the horizon from TEA, from the state, from the Department of Education? Because obviously this is an expense that in theory, were it not for COVID and remote learning, that a district shouldn't have to expend. And so is there anything out there that may be additional funds for this kind of technology?
You know, both on the federal level and state level, this has been talked about a number of times, and for some reason they continue to skirt that, the expense side of it. But I will say that I actually was on a meeting this morning and we were talking through this, and kudos to Mr. Monroe for getting it the price he has, because other districts are getting it double or 3 times the cost. So wow, I mean, just awesome. So my point was, there are a large number of districts in the state of Texas that don't have the funds available like we currently do, that are struggling, and they don't know how they're going to even be able to purchase such. And so there's even a greater push across the state of Texas to find such funds. We originally thought that some of those monies, that CARES funding that was coming in, was going to be able to be used to purchase this, and instead the state purchased the PPEs that I'd mentioned before. We're getting the 229,000 masks, et cetera. So a lot of that was purchased and taken care of with some of those funds. But I don't know if the future will come where we'll get federal funds to cover this. I will say it's a hot topic, and superintendents across the state continue to push the idea, as I will continue to do such. And hopefully with us purchasing them, it would become then a reimbursement later. But don't hold your breath right now.
That's right. One of the best hopes is probably that they open up both funding for carrier-based hotspots like this, as well as district constructed cellular networks, which is something we're investigating, as there's some new options on the market and some new spectrum for that. But that they roll that into the E-rate discount program. I know that there's been a group of Texas senators that have written to the FCC commissioners asking that they open up a lot of the money that's sitting in the E-rate bank right now to allow eligibility for this. The same way that we get 80% discount on our district internet service at home for students has never been eligible in that program. And that's probably one of the best hopes, is if they get the FCC to open that up.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, board members? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor? So that's 6 in favor. Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Our next item is 4F, consider the purchase of a solution that allows students to have remote learning access to the computing power necessary to run specialized software for CATE programs such as multimedia and engineering classes. Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, President Klein, Dr. Chapman, members of the board. One more technology item for tonight is one of the challenges we're expecting to face, and this isn't a new necessarily just a COVID-19 or remote learning response. This is something that's probably been a need for a while in the district, and that the device we're providing students with, as well as access to the software that they use in a lot of career and technical classes. Great example would be some of the multimedia classes, classes where Autodesk products like AutoCAD or drafting products may be used, but as well as other courses, biomed, and things that use Windows-based software. The students come into the labs in the campuses, put their Chromebooks away, use those Windows computers. When they leave, they have no way to access that software and run those tools either for homework or to continue working on a project. And certainly students that elect to learn remotely for the 2021 school year or portion of it that are enrolled in those classes, we don't currently have a way to provide them with access to a tool, to a computer that they could run that software from home with. So this is a solution that is still in the works. This is, once again, kind of an approval up to a maximum price for a server-based product, virtualized Windows desktops provided remotely so that students could run those software applications through their Chromebook, through a home computer, and that would run on the data center, the new data center at the multipurpose facility. Up to 60 students at a time could begin working on those with the solution that's budgeted here. In addition, there's 30. We looked at a solution of purchasing more laptops that could serve, that we feel that 60 concurrent could probably serve several hundred students that are in those classes, because they wouldn't all be in there at the same time. To serve them with a laptop that would go home, we would be spending more money on those laptops, in addition to the fact that's a very high risk item if it was to get lost or stolen for that student. But we do need to purchase, we feel, around 30 laptops for students who may not have broadband internet access at home, because if we have to give them one of our mobile hotspots, it's not going to work very well with the VDI based solution. And so they would need a laptop, workstation class graphics laptop capable of running that software that we could check out to them along with the hotspot. That won't be a waste once COVID-19 is over, because we have quite a few labs at the high schools that can be refreshed with these, as well as students who go on competition and trips around robotics and engineering competitions. Need to take a mobile lab with them for those competitions, and the ones we have now available for that are about 6 years old. So all of this purchase will have great utility after we're hopefully past the COVID-19 era. But is critical to start school with for those students that are remote learning. Any questions on that?
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Do we have a motion by a board member? Mr. Matthews.
I move we approve the purchase of a remote learning solution for the CAT program as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews. Is there a second? Mr. Ramos. So any discussion, questions for Mr. Monroe? Anybody wants to stump Dr. Chapman? No, everybody's just being sweet. So all those in favor? So that is 6 in favor and 0 will be opposed. So that brings us to the next agenda item, and thank you, Mr. Monroe, for your presentation. That takes us to item 4G, consider purchase of secure medication carts. Brian Marsh.
President Klein, Dr. Chapman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to talk about the proposal recommendation for medication cards. The Department of State Health requires that districts have secure medication storage that provides a double lock. Our current storage does not provide that. Therefore, Sandra Leak and her staff, she's the Director of Health Services, got together to research what would be the best option to solve this and to be able to meet the state requirement. Their research determined that the medication cart with the double lock did solve that, or would solve that problem and meet the state requirement. The recommendation is for initial purchase of 39 medication carts. The cost for the purchase of 39 medication carts is not to exceed, or we don't believe it will exceed $50,000. However, in order to anticipate the purchase of additional medication carts, this request is for authorization to spend up to $75,000 for secure medication carts during the next 12 months. And the reason we need that flexibility is it's dependent upon special needs students and their medication needs. Some campuses are very large, so we need more than one cart, and we have them at different spots in the campus. So, and this obviously is a non-technology issue, non-technology purchase. I tried to get it into Mr. Monroe's court, but it didn't work. So based on that, it is the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Trustees approves the purchase of secure medication carts with the recommended vendor and authorize the superintendent or his designee to execute these purchases in the best interest of the district.
The board members, do we have a motion? Mr. Shackman.
Ms. Klein, I would make a motion that we purchase the secure medication carts with a maximum cost of up to $75,000 as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Shackman. Is there a second? Ms. Derrick. Thank you. Any discussion? You may want to ask Mr. Murch any questions? Well, I appreciate that. All those in favor? So that is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Thank you, board members. The board is now on agenda item number 5, comments from board members regarding posted agenda items. Does anyone want to make any comments at this time? I would just like to thank all the board members and the staff for participating in this meeting tonight and assembling the important items for our district to be able to move forward. I look forward, I appreciate your time. I hope you stay well, and I look forward to seeing everyone maybe in person on August 6th, 2020. So, any other comments from board members? I don't see any, so that takes us to agenda item number 6. We've reached the end of our agenda and we are adjourned at 7:33 p.m. Thank you.